Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Essential Patterns of Mature Agile Leaders. My name is Brian Estep, and I'm a senior partner with Velocity Partners. Before we get started, I'd like to provide a quick overview of our company. Velocity Partners was founded in 2004 and has been dedicated to producing high-quality software using Agile and Lean processes from day one. Our clients range from startups to Fortune 200 companies, but all rely upon innovative technology as an integral part of their success. Our model is nearshore distributed Agile teams. We are headquartered in Seattle and have over 400 technical staff across our 5 offices in South America. We have 3 offices in Argentina, 1 in Montevideo, Uruguay, and our newest is in Medellin, Colombia, which, by the way, was highlighted by the Wall Street Journal as the world's most innovative urban area, beating out both New York and Tel Aviv. Our highly collaborative approach is enabled by several factors. Time zone alignment. There's a minimum of 4 to 7 hours of workday overlap for collaboration with our clients in North America. Excellent infrastructure and modern delivery centers which enhance real-time interactions with our clients. And of course, most of all, our people. They are passionate technical Agilists who possess superior English skills and are well educated through excellent university systems. All of our team members participate in ongoing training and coaching, and our attrition rate remains less than 5%. Just a few last things before we get started. We do encourage your questions during the presentation. Please send them using the questions tool on the toolbar on the right, and I will forward them to Bob as time permits during our hour together. There will also be a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, time permitting. The slides and a recording of this webinar will be made available on our website and on our YouTube channel. And now I'd like to introduce Bob Galen. Bob Galen is an Agile methodologist, practitioner, and coach based in Cary, North Carolina. In this role, he helps guide companies and teams in their adoption and organizational shift towards Scrum and other Agile methods. He is currently the Principal Agile Evangelist at Velocity Partners, as well as President of Robert Galen Consulting Group. Bob regularly speaks at international conferences and professional groups on a broad range of topics related to software development. He is also the author of 2 books, Agile Reflections and Scrum Product Ownership. And with that, Bob, over to you.
Hey, Brian. Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. It's my pleasure to be with you for the next hour. I appreciate you dialing in and your interest, and hopefully you get something out of today. Before I get started, I want to just give everyone a warning that it may be a little bit of a rocky road today. I'm on my back porch, believe it or not. I'm having some emergency construction in my house, so you may hear some saws or pounding. I think we have it under control, but please bear with us. I might pause every once in a while, but it shouldn't be too bad. Also, there was a jet going overhead a little while ago, so hopefully we can redirect the air traffic as well. So I'm just apologizing a little bit in advance, but I think you'll be able to get we'll be able to get through it. This talk is about leadership and making the transition from traditional leadership to Agile leadership. One of the things I like to do in the kickoff or the introduction is talk about the why behind it. So version 1 is a tool, is a vendor, a relatively popular vendor in the Agile ALM space. And they do a service for the community, for the Agile community, in that they've been, I think for the last 5, 6, 7 years, they've been doing an annual survey. And I just pulled some data from the 2011 survey. They make it freely available, and it gives you, I think if you're doing anything with Agile adoption or coaching or leading, it's something you want to pay attention to. It talks about the transformation, how agility is transforming the enterprise, and what are some of the success patterns and the failure patterns. And this comes into the barriers to further Agile adoption. This is the top 5 from 2011, and I've highlighted 3 that I think are relevant for us as leaders. Culture, general resistance to change, and then management support. And are we supporting, and this would be management, middle tier management, up to C-level management. But I think there's these three critical areas are one of the drivers behind my doing this workshop, because I think leadership matters. There is an off-again, on-again discussion in the Agile community as to the place for leaders. A lot of folks in the Agile community marginalize leaders, or they try to marginalize leaders, or Dilbertify leaders. And I don't want to do that. From my viewpoint, I think it's partly because I've been a leader, I've been a senior leader in organizations, but part because I don't think it's the right model. That I think we need to partner with leadership. Leadership needs to partner with the team in order to really create successful Agile adoption and transformation. So that's the one why behind the workshop. Another why is I think we as leaders can play this incredibly important role in trying to help teams mature. So I don't know if you've heard it, but there is a debate or a discussion in the Agile community quite often around, are we doing Agile or are we being Agile? And very often organizations, entry-level or novel or new organizations are doing Agile. This is the beginning stages. So some of the activities there is you focus towards tactics and ceremonies, and you're just doing the tactics. So you're having a daily stand-up, for example, would be a doing Agile practice. But you're having a powerful daily stand-up would be a being Agile practice. And you're on this continuum between doing and being. We're not going to, it's a webinar, so I'm not going to brainstorm with you, but I'll use that daily stand-up. So I think a tactical daily stand-up would be the team, you have a daily stand-up, it's a 15-minute stand-up, the team members talk, they might do the 3 questions, what did I do yesterday, what do I plan on doing today, is there anything in my way? There's a by-rote discussion around that. It's a status report, not bad. Team members may come in, they may be a little late. If you have remote teams members, they may or may not be involved because it's inconvenient or convenient. But you're trying your best to do the stand-up. I think one of the indications there, the anti-patterns, is status. So very often in that stand-up, I see, if I'm in a Scrum Master role, I see people reporting to me. No matter what I do, if I close my eyes, if I hide behind someone, and I've done this in stand-ups, but people inevitably are making eye contact with me as the Scrum Master. So instead of reporting to the team, we're not reporting, that's the wrong word, but instead of interacting with the team and talking about progress that the team is making, both what that individual is doing and what the team is doing, and progress to goal, progress to the sprint goal, it's this by-rote status report and making direct eye contact and just having a readout. So to me, the readout, the status report is the doing. Having a really dynamic stand-up where the entire team is holding themselves accountable to the sprint goal and talking about progress yesterday to the sprint goal, not individual, but paired, contribution, collaborative progress that they've made towards the sprint goal. And let's say that they're not making progress. Let's say they're behind progress to goal. Then really switching into what do we do today in the moment? What is the number 1, number 2, number 3 thing that we can do today as a team to advance our progress to goal so that we can recover this sprint and we can deliver on our promises to our stakeholders? That's that being Agile, that mindset of team ownership. That mindset where a developer might pick up some testing activity for a tester, and they really don't care about their role. They care about that. So it's not role first, it's team first. It's results first. It's meeting your commitment. It's quality first. It's not just having stories that are development complete, but they're done stories. That's using the daily stand-up as a way of describing doing versus being. But I would bring that same model to the entire process, if you will, of doing versus being. You can see that distinction between we're going through the motions, and again, I'm not judging those teams. That's not bad. It's good, but what does best look like? And being is aspiring to best. And it's not best, it's going on the journey to best. So think in terms of, to me, of being Agile, mindset would be continuous improvement, where you look at it as a journey and that you're never really done. And leadership, the folks, I'm talking to all of you who are listening in. I'm counting you as leaders, whether you're a leader or not. We can play a phenomenal part and be a partner to teams and move them from doing to that being mindset and that being Agile mindset. So that's the why behind this workshop. And I hope you see some of that along the way. We're going to dive into some patterns. The genesis of this workshop is a longer half-day or a full-day workshop where I have 20 or 25 patterns. I've cherry-picked 10 from that longer workshop, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to go through these somewhat quickly. I mean, I have a velocity to upkeep here, but we'll go through these. And so let's start. Let's get going because we got a lot to cover, and we have some velocity to support. The first pattern. Oh, and by the way, they're not in any particular order. I mean, there's maybe a flow. I like the flow that they're in, but it's not a backlog. It's not a product backlog. They're not in priority order or value order. There's some valuable stuff at the end as well. And one final thing is, please type in. We're not taking verbal questions, but we are taking questions via the interface. So if you have questions, Brian's going to be. He has volunteered to be my facilitator. So he's going to be monitoring questions. He's going to be interrupting me if it's appropriate, or we'll save some of them to the end. So please make it, I love interactivity, and so please make this as interactive as you want it to be, or as you can be. So ask questions if you got them. So first pattern, leading with vision, and VMGT, vision, mission, goals, and transparency. Being very goal-centric and multi-leveled in your goals. So having standards, having coding standards, having design standards, having requirement standards is fair game from that perspective. So you don't have them, have them. Defining your definition of done, better yet, and then adhering to your definition of done. Better yet, doing it in a consistent fashion. So every story that comes through a team, user story, that comes through a team adheres to the definition of done, and not because someone's monitoring it in a police-like state, but because the team takes craft and professional responsibility to know that they made a commitment to deliver done, high-quality done stories. Sprint goals are driving sprint behavior. The team signs up not to a series of stories, but to a goal, to a demonstrable goal. What are they going to demo at the end? And release goals. Leadership is providing, and in this case very often it's product leadership, product owners, the chief product owner, is providing the why behind what's going on, behind the backlog, the competitive landscape, why behind stories, why behind features, why behind epics, why behind the release 1, why are we prioritizing features this way in release 1 versus release 2? And then a fundamental thing that I think is really important is treating your teams like adults, that they can handle the truth. And I'm not talking about 100%. I know there's things that we don't want to disclose as leaders, but walking up to that bar and disclosing what we can, being a straight shooter, a straight talker, and part of that straight talking is talking about being agile. So it's not just product landscape, mission, and vision, but I want you to also set this tone of how agile do we want to be? Later on, I'm going to talk about failure. That would be a wonderful thing to talk about here, is setting the tone in hallway conversations and talk about when was the last time you failed? And as someone, and then once they pass out on the floor, knowing that you as a senior leader have said that, you help them up and you dust them off, and you say, I meant what I said. I'm a little concerned that we're playing it safe. Is there an opportunity to take risk? So you're talking about those attributes, those being agile attributes. You're amplifying it to the team. You're giving the team permission to be. It's not just, that being agile is not just for the team. It's for the organization. It's for that organizational landscape. They need permission. That permission has been held back from them for a long time in other models. And part of these conversations, part of this leading with vision and mission and goals and transparency and straight talk is really setting that landscape that we're not in Kansas anymore. And I'm setting the tone with you, and it's going to be different. I just wanted to bring up, there's this book. I'm a fan of Stephen Covey and the 7 Habits, and his son wrote this book. This is a few years, more than a few years ago, I think. But The Speed of Trust. And he talks about 13 key behaviors that foster and increase trust. And I wanted to highlight, I've underscored ones that I think have, all 13 are wonderful. All 13 align with agile or what I would call, modern leadership. But there's some here that resonate more with the message of this talk. Talking straight, you'll see, is number 1. Create transparency. And this book is not an agile book. This is talking about leadership. This is talking about motivating your team And traditional teams, agile teams, just any team. Confronting reality, meaning speaking reality, is, you know, the reality of your company and your competitive landscape and your financials, etc. You're not hiding things. Number 11, incredibly important in Agile context, is ask questions. One of the wonderful things you can do as an Agile leader is ask open-ended questions of your teams, because you're leveraging this transparency. But then the next, even more wonderful thing that you can do is shut up and listen. And I mean that with all due respect, but you can shut up and listen. Listen first, and then extend trust. Give them that trust, and trust them, and then, you know, and not trust but verify. And we'll talk about that later. But trust, and then go to a sprint review and see what the results are. These iterative models are showing you are your checkpoints. It's your heartbeat for how well are we doing. No longer do you have to have these large risk plans or these large sort of status reports. If you want to know how well it's going, attend the sprint demo, attend a daily stand-up, and listen, quietly listen, attend sprint planning, etc. There's two notions I want to bring up from a leadership perspective, and it's how do you set up guardrails? How do you set up guidelines? How do you set up controls but without controlling? And there's two patterns that we see in the community. One is a center of excellence, or a COE, and that would be an Agile center of excellence or an Agile community of practice, and a COP. Both are effective. Usually in my travels, I see the center of excellence being a little bit more prescriptive than the community of practice. Usually the community of practice is driven from the team up, and the teams and the Scrum Masters and the product owners are collecting sort of best practices or templates and things, and they're sharing them across other teams. I like it because it's a lighter hand. It's a softer touch. The center of excellence can be effective as well. As a coach, I've set up centers of excellence. Usually I'm prescribing something, for example, the format of a user story or prioritization, or what pointing mechanism we're using for planning paper, etc. But don't shy away from, either if you want a stronger hand or a softer hand. The point is, guardrails and guidelines are fair game. I see way too many Agile instances where the leaders, there are two things have happened. Either the leaders have not changed a thing, so they remain heavy-handed and prescriptive, and in some cases micromanaging, or they take a step entirely back and they go totally hands-off, believe it or not, and they're not providing any leadership or any guidelines or any guidance to the teams. And I think both of those can be very destructive. This is that middle ground where you're applying guidelines and guardrails and standards and roles and responsibilities. It's like, for example, defining roles and responsibilities. I get asked this question all the time at conferences. Folks they want to know what is the role of a PO, a product owner? What is the role of a Scrum Master? And I think that's fair. And I think it's more than fair to describe that for them, not as a job description that says this is what I do and this is what I don't do, but as a general sort of template of what are the boundaries for this role, what is the guidance for that, what is the expectations of it, what is in the game for that role. Coaching your Scrum Masters and product owners, sometimes I call coaching the coaches, and I think that's incredibly important. So the essence of this slide, as part of your leadership and vision setting and mission and goal setting, is establish something, a center of excellence, establish criteria, community of practice. Feel free to do that. Agility is not an inmates running the asylum model. If that helps, it's not that. You're not totally living free. There are controls, there are constraints, particularly in certain contexts. Like, let's say you're working in a regulated environment. You need those things. You're not leading if you're not providing some constraints. The second pattern, I think this is really important early on to get our head around, is it goes to the bottom right. I don't think agility is a methodology. It's part. I don't know what part. If you put a gun to my head, I don't know if it's 30%, 40%, 80%. I think the Agile methods are part methodology, but I think a greater part of it is an organizational transformation play, where they're changing the entire organization. It's not just for the technology team or the product team. It's for the organization. HR, for example, will be disrupted by you going agile. Your accounting department will be changed by going agile. The way you sell products will be changed by going agile. The way you market those products will change. The way you do customer support will change. It is an organizational-wide disruptor. I think in a positive way if we get the leadership going in the right direction. So from that point of view, I talk about it being a three-tiered adoption strategy, where the teams are moving, then mid-level management, and then senior leadership. And they all need to be moving somewhat together. What I'm really coaching against here, counseling against, is taking a one-tier view. For example, very often organizations, they'll train the teams, they look at it as a team-centric methodology change, and they're really not touching middle management or senior leadership. Or they might give them a half-an-hour workshop or something, or give them a book, or give them an overview of Agile or Scrum or whatever, but they're really not on board. They're not changing the way they work. They're not changing the metrics. They're not changing the way they manage the business, and they have to. That's the point. All three tiers have to move. At the same rate, no. So in lockstep, no. It is very, but every tier has to realize that they have to take some personal responsibility to transformation. I personally think, and I think the version 1 survey supports this view, and historically you've seen it over time and it's trending, that the middle management layer is the critical success or the critical failure factor in sustained Agile adoption. And what I mean by middle management is functional managers, the folks the teams report to, development managers, test managers, project managers, PMO officers, etc. That middle tier of functional management, they can make or break an Agile transformation depending upon how they're interacting with the teams. I think very often we leave them alone to fend for themselves, and they feel at risk. They feel that Agile they're not a part of it. They feel marginalized, and therefore sometimes subtly and sometimes not so subtly they start undermining or sabotaging agility. And I think as organizational coaches, we need to attack, or partner is the better word, partner with those folks and really help them, help their teams, and help their organizations transform. That's the point of the pyramid. Don't look at it as a team-only play. Don't look at it as a senior leadership-only play. Look at it, all three have to be moving effectively. And leadership plays a part in that. Trusting your teams. I get out about a lot, and I ask, I ask a lot of leaders, do you trust your teams? And of course, I can't remember the last time someone said, no, I don't trust my team. So no one admits, very few leaders are out there talking about how blatantly and openly and honestly how they distrust their teams. So everyone says they trust their teams. So provide guidance and advice, foster an environment of experimentation. So here's what it means to trust. Try new things. Foster that environment where teams can try things. Here's another thing that it means, allowing, tolerating, and fostering failure. I like this term of failing forward. John Maxwell has written an entire book. He's written a bunch of books on leadership, but one of them is called Failing Forward. And I love that terminology for failure because it's learning forward. It's experimentation, learning. Yes, we failed, but it's what we do with the failure. And that I try to reinforce that language in teams when I'm leading Agile teams or when I'm coaching them. Focus on roles and the endpoints of sprint. So looking at the endpoint, trusting a team, and then the verification is just really attending the sprint review, attending the ceremonies, and being engaged, and expecting the team to deliver on their promises. And if they don't, expecting the team to continuously improve. So trust, you play an incredibly, I think, important role in trusting your teams. I forgot to tell you, I think here, when you notice the term blog, I don't know if there was any blog, so this is the first usage of blog. If you get the PDF of this, there's a blog post that supports this somewhere, either on my blog or somewhere where I've written an article for an external blog. But you can get a deep dive or a deeper dive behind the slide. So there's a blog post on trust, and if you get the PDF, and we'll give you a link for that later, you can do a little bit of a deep dive and get more information. So continuing with trust, I know you've all said you trust. I'm gonna distrust your trusting. I'm going to say I don't know if you really trust your teams. In fact, I don't know. I think you don't. So here's the checklist. Do you trust their estimates? Do you trust their craftsmanship? Do you trust their judgment and decision making? Their level of effort? Their plan? Are they working hard? And don't give me the, I want you to work smart, not hard, but smart. Do you trust their plans, their code quality, their motives, their skill, their preferred approaches? If they come to you with a novel design idea that you don't know if it's going to work or not, do you trust them and give them the space to try to build things differently than you would? Do you actively give them feedback in real time? One observation I have is it's really easy, and I hope this resonates with all of you. I think it's easy to say you trust. It's easy to trust when the going is, when the going is easy. But how about when the going is tough? How about if you've just missed 3 sprints? They failed 3 times. You're behind. You're 50% behind on the current release. Your velocity is in the crapper. And do you still trust the team? Not blindly, but do you still trust what they're doing? If they come to you with corrective actions, do you ask questions? But at the end of the day, trust them. They're closest to the problem. And remember, it's not just your words that amplify trust. It's your body language. It's your facial expressions. It's your voice, etc. So I want you to have a trustometer check of yourself, because you want to raise that. And this whole notion, please stop using. I think it was Reagan with the Russians. We're going to trust the Russians but verify. Ronald Reagan did not trust the Russians. The trust but verify is a distrust model. So as leaders, you have to extend, or I'm encouraging you to extend trust. The team, they have to earn it. I want you to extend trust first. Let them earn it over time. You're going to get into a catch-22, and that will not extend trust to your teams. So I'm encouraging you as a leader, and I practice this. I practice what I preach. I know how hard it is, but extend that trust. It's incredibly important for your teams, for you to, particularly if you're moving from waterfall to agile, for you to initially extend trust, because I think waterfall is a distrust model. Brian, is there a question?
There was, yeah. Sorry, I couldn't catch it quick enough. So I think it's a little past context, but the question is if you can give an example of fostering an environment of experimentation.
I think story spikes, for example, in Agile are experimentation spikes. If you're familiar with the term research spike or user story spike, by definition, a lot of leaders are very uncomfortable with that, because what that is, they want stories to produce working code, even if it's partially working code, or they want the team to be, I don't want you designing, I want you typing lines of code. I want you spending very little time on analysis or learning, etc. Because I can't qualify that. I can't deliver that to the client. So I think being supportive of teams experimenting with user story spikes. Another example is, and I think I have some slides later, I think I have this pattern in there, where I talk about doing hackathons. If you're familiar with Google Time or hackathons, or where you give the team space for them to work on things that matter to them. That's another that's another area where I think you're giving that the team can investigate, the team can experiment with things, and you're not looking over their shoulder with the hour clock, and the timesheet and etc., and trying to quantify there every second. Hope that helped. Always remember, 4th pattern, again, a blog post here, always remember the team. So start shifting your language. In fact, I'll go to here, it's really bad language, like this first bullet under changing your language. Why didn't we find that in test? It's incredibly bad form for a leader in an agile context if a team is having problems, or let's say a team is suffering from scrum-a-fall. Scrum-a-fall is developers working in the beginning days of a sprint, and then they flip it over the wall on day 8 of a 10-day sprint to testers and say, here, our job is done, now you test. But you only have 2 days to do that. It took us 8 days to build it, and we gave you 2 days. The point is, let's say they go into the sprint review and the team didn't completely deliver all of that work. And you as a leader jump up in the sprint review and they're like, why didn't the testers deliver the goods there? So what you're doing is you're focusing on the silo. Well, any member of the development team on that Scrum team could have tested as well. In fact, so if the team missed it on bug count, the developers could not have written that bug. The testers could have found it. The developers could not have written it. The product owner could have asked some inquisitive, some questions around it. The point is, in our language, stop talking about functional silos, development, architecture, BA, tech writing. Yes, those are relevant. You're not changing job descriptions, but the more you can emphasize the team. What is the team planning to do? What is the team's commitment to the sprint goal? You're encountering some turbulence in this sprint. How is the team handling that? The more you can emphasize that language, the more you can reward the team, the more you can celebrate the team, the better off you are, the more you can emphasize that. Waterfall emphasized silos and handoffs. We want to sort of switch that thinking to the team. And holding the team accountable to results. That whole notion of, if I'm a developer and it's like I'm ahead of, it's the middle of a sprint and I'm done. I've coded everything. For the next 5 days, I'll be working on work for the next sprint. Well, only work on the next sprint if every member of the team is fine and they need no help and it's a slam dunk delivery for your sprint goal. Otherwise, you need to get your nose in the game for this sprint and not work ahead. Even if you're ahead, your team is not ahead. And yes, the individual matters, but the team matters more. Emphasizing that as a leader is incredibly important, I think. And again, these are roles. These are things. Yes, the teams will get this, but this is something that your reinforcement, your communication, your dogged persistence in reminding the folks that the landscape has changed, the paradigm is shifting, and you're supporting it is crucial to making that shift. There's a wonderful model by Pat Lencioni called the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I've used it. It's not Agile direct. It has no direct connection to agility, but I think it supports the mindset of building trust and building healthy conflict and then leading to commitment in sprints. So the model, in the last 2 or 3 Agile organizations I've been a part of internally, we've rolled out 5 dysfunctions as a way to build better, more accountable Agile teams and to sort of instill this model into the team. So I just bring that up as a model you might find interesting. Champion your team's results. So you need to be the cheerleader. And it's harder in Agile because the victories are small slices. Everything's being built iteratively. Your team could only deliver these 5 small stories in a sprint in 2 weeks or a 1-week sprint, a very short sprint. And you may look at it and you're like, boy, there's not much to that. Well, yeah, it's not equivalent to a 6-month waterfall release. It's a thin slice of that. But darn it, you better celebrate that. You better find the excitement in your head from that thin slice. You want to start sharing stories across your teams. One of the things I would do when I was at iContact as their leader is I would share stories of success from one team to the other, or a team that failed. I would share with one team, this team over here, they failed the last sprint, but what was interesting is how they recovered and what they learned and what they did with the learning. And you're starting to share a story from with one team to another team or organizationally. You want to look back at your progress. So don't just look forward. Don't just drive your teams forward, but occasionally turn your head around and say, what have we accomplished? And then celebrate that with your team. And then please defend your teams, defend their Agile journey. Focus on transparent results. And if folks, the results will be different. So don't, if someone is picking on your team, oh, you didn't write a status report and your plan was flawed and your estimates were slightly off. And all of that was true, but the team had a slam dunk at the end of the sprint and they delivered the goods and they stretched and they delivered more than they thought they could. So what's more relevant? The plan and the preparation or the results? And I would say, yeah, planning is good. The results trump all of that stuff. So defend your teams as the organization is moving from that traditional view, which I think amplifies plans and adherence to plan and actuals, to are we getting things done? And not just things done at the end of the sprint, but when they land in the customer's lap. Are you getting standing ovations? Are you getting applause? Are you getting smiles? Is it value in the eyes of the user? And that's the result side of things. And I'll tell you what, if teams are doing that, and that's the essence of agility, one of the essence points, you're getting the results. That's what you want. Champion that with your teams. Another job for you. I hope you all feel burdened. I hope everyone who's listening in is getting a little, after every pattern, is your shoulders are jumping down just a little bit more with a little bit of additional weight. I know you can handle it, but I'm hoping I'm putting some balls or the monkey on your back a little bit. It's there. It belongs there, and you can respond. Your teams need that. They need you. They need leadership. The sixth pattern: continuously reinforce accountability. Yes, Virginia, there is accountability in Agile. So influence it, but it's not daily. It's not micromanagement accountability. Leverage it with the heartbeat of your sprints. Attend sprint events. I can't tell you how many leaders I run into, and they're whining and they're complaining about Agile and the results, but they don't show up because they're too busy to the reviews. And if they do show up at the review, they're on their iPads and their iPhones, or they're taking calls, or they're attending for 5 minutes and then they run out with an emergency call. Let me tell you, everyone, the most important thing you can do as a leader is pay attention to what's coming out of the teams. It's your responsibility. The Agile mantra is teams work a sprint at a time on the most valuable stuff on the planet Earth to your business. That's the view. Highest value, highest priority, deliver it on, let's say, a 2-week tempo. Okay, that is crucial stuff. From either they're working on the wrong stuff, then give them that feedback. If they're working on the right stuff, then you need to get in there and you need to give them feedback. Period. End of story. It's an incredibly important engagement point for you to reinforce that accountability. If you don't show up, I wouldn't care either. Oh, okay, no one in the business. No wonder we're struggling as an organization. And then not only expect software, but look under the covers. Are they failing? Are they taking risks? Are they continuously improving, which is incredibly hard? And then reward that and talk about that. This is what I was alluding to earlier. Is I think traditionally we ride our teams too hard. Our hearts are in the right place, but we, under the banner of speed or productivity, we've encouraged / forced teams to work at 120, 130% of their capacity. We want to be giving, actually instead of that, we want to be giving the teams some space. Tom DeMarco wrote this wonderful book called Slack, and he talks, and I'll go ahead. I hope I have the quote here, his Slack quote. And so Slack is the degree of freedom in the company that allows room for change, allows people to breathe, to be more effective, to recreate themselves. In order to achieve the promise of agility, I think it's incredibly hard if we load everyone up at 125% of their capacity, if we micromanage every minute of their time, if we look over their shoulder and micromanage their code or their testing, etc. If we multitask people, there's way too much multitasking at product owners and scrum masters in the world. A scrum master can handle 15 teams. A product owner can handle 10 backlogs. That's not true whatsoever. I mean, there's a reason why the founders of Scrum talk about one product owner per team and backlog and one Scrum Master per team. Maybe you can overload them with 2 teams, maybe at the most 3, but I see so much multitasking and overload out there, and too much. We're losing time on task switch time. And instead of doing that, we want to come back, give the team some space. Google did that for a while. Unfortunately, they took it away of 20% time. They would give, so teams would work 80%, let's say, but there was 20% time where they had innovation or hackathons, where the teams could work on truly creative things, not monopoly games, but things that made a difference to the products. They could do investigation. They could try out algorithms. They could try new prototypes. They could build new languages. And it turned out that a lot of that stuff got converted into the projects and the products. That's where their innovation came in. It was building the products. They shut it off, and there's a link, there's a blog post around that. They shut it off because the traditional management started winging out. They started distrusting their teams. What am I getting for that 20% time? I can use that for bug fixing or whatever. So slack time is incredibly important. It takes courage for you to fight for that for your team. Incredibly hard for teams to get this on their own. You would need to fight for / give this to the team. And I'm not talking, when I was at iContact, every release, we roughly had quarterly releases. In the release boundaries, we would give the team what we called I-days. And it was 3 days of innovation time. So it was innovation days. So on a quarterly basis, we gave back to the team 3 days. Nearly 65% of the projects that the teams worked on, we rolled into the project as we monitored that over into the product. And that was selected by the product owners going, wow, I never thought of that. I want that in the product. Wow, the customers never thought of that. We want that in the product. That never would have happened if we would have run the teams at 130% of their capacity. That's what I'm talking about. And leadership, you have to provide that. You have to provide the way for that. I was
Hey,
sharing.
Bob.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Couple questions on that.
Sure.
One, would you recommend slack time if the environment is unstable?
I don't know what the environment is unstable means. If someone could provide more information, does that mean that you're in an earthquake zone? Does that mean that your tools are unstable? Does that mean that leadership is unstable? I don't, and I'm not, it may sound like I'm facetious, but I'm not.
Yeah.
So if you could give me more on what you mean by instability, I could try to answer it.
Yeah, and actually, I'm just realizing the next questions seem to be examples of that. So, for example, too many bugs, system outages, etc. Things like that.
No, I would attack that with, I think I'll throw this out there. I'm not judging that environment. I think those symptoms may be related to driving teams at overcapacity. So there's no time to create stability. There's no time to not just fix a bug, but fix root causes of bugs. To look at refactoring the architecture. Part of what I'm talking about is giving the team space for that. I personally, I'm reacting to those words, whoever that is, what you just described, as the opportunity for innovation days or Google Time sorts of things. I would apply that to that. I would give the team some space to try to solve some of those hard problems from an architecture or from a stability perspective. And you know what? Who's best placed to do that? Leadership? I don't know. Unless you're coding day to day, and maybe then you should be coding and not leading. But the team is closest to solving those problems. Now, you can play a wonderful part in helping guide them towards maybe root causes and things. Short answer is no. I think that would be a fertile opportunity personally, and I would have high expectations of the team to solve some of that stuff in short order because I gave them. So it's not just giving them the space it's not inmates running the asylum. It's giving them the space and then being astounded by what they come back with. And I think I've been pleasantly astounded whenever I've balanced that with the team. Okay. Number 8, let me check the time. We're doing okay. My velocity isn't too bad. Saying no as a leader. So it's not always saying yes. I think one of the things as a leader is knowing when to say when, knowing when to step in, knowing when to step out, asking the right, please, I'm giving you all permission now. Ask inquisitive questions. Be true, it's trustfully and inquisitive. So don't use questions as a game. To actually undermine, so it's really distrustful. Are you sure about that? I really think it's 20. I really don't think it's 20 points. I think it's 5 points. Are you sure you're not overestimating that? I bet. I talked to Charlie last night, and Charlie said he could do that in 2 points. So why is it going to take you 20 points if Charlie thinks it's a 2-point thing? That's not inquisitive, open-minded, just curious questions. You're trying to drive down the estimates. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not. Don't say no that way as a leader. But ask questions. Be inquisitive. Have the courage to tell it like it is occasionally as a team. Look a team in the eye and say your velocity isn't meeting on all. I don't know what the magic number is. But every other team is hitting 50 points per sprint. You've been consistently hitting 20. I'm not comparing you to them, but I just want you to be cognizant. Are you hitting on all cylinders? Is there a performance issue? Can I help you with something? Do you need some coaching? One of the things here with saying no as a leader, please actively do one-on-one coaching. Anytime you're moving teams from waterfall sort of dynamics to agile dynamics, I think leaders, that middle tier leaders, plays an incredibly important role in guiding everyone individually in your one-on-ones. Hopefully you're having them, so continue one-on-ones, where now you start talking, you move from talking about individual performance to team performance. You talk about traditional metrics to agile metrics. You start shifting their thinking. If you have folks who are change resistant, you're coaching them to be less change resistant, to be more open-minded, to try things out as you're going down this agile journey. That's part of your job as well. And you may very well say, no, we're committed to agility. Now, what can I do to partner with you to help you to make this transition? Because we need you to be part of this team, and we can't, you can't be a naysayer for the next 13 years. We need to get in a place because we've committed to this process. So knowing when to step in, what I would counsel you to do is always come back to core Agile principles like transparency, communication, accountability, etc., face-to-face communication. There's goodness in those basic Agile manifesto principles and in the principles behind agility. So bring your leadership. What I'm really trying to say is be principled in your leadership and come back to those basics. And I think you'll find, if you're looking for what do I do in this situation, come back to the principles, and I think you'll find your way. I'm going to skip that because I think, well, no, I apologize. I think we have the time. The one thing I talk about here, there's a wonderful book called Crucial Conversations you're all probably aware of, but there's a one thing that comes out of that. And really the one thing here to read through the words is when you're at a crossroads in communicating as a leader, and let's say that you're a terrible communicator, you're an inexperienced leader, and you have a choice, you're at a crossroads, and you want to have a crucial conversation with someone who's not pulling their weight. So the question is, if I might do a crappy job, but do I have a crappy conversation with them, knowing that you want to have a good conversation, or do I avoid it because I don't know if I'll do it, I'm not sure I'll do it properly. So now I'm at this crossroad. Do I have the conversation? Do I avoid the conversation? For whatever set of reasons, the one thing says have the conversation. Even if you don't have all the data, even if you're not sure of root cause, even if you're not skilled in the communication, have the courage to get it out there, to get those 800-pound gorillas on the table for analysis. That one thing says, have those risky conversations. Now, behind the scenes, if you're not good at it, then improve yourself. So yes, get better over time. So your crucial conversations are optimized conversations, but don't leverage excuses or time. I don't have the time for it now. I'll defer it to later. Don't avoid things. We need to be in the game. We need to be transparent. It goes back to that vision, mission, goal setting, and transparency with our communication. So don't be afraid to have it. Don't be afraid for the team to tell you you're wrong. Right? That's your perception, but that's not the reality. Here's where we are in this sprint. Trust us. We're going to deliver this sucker. Give the team the space for that. Have those conversations, but they need you to be there. So that courage proposition can really come from yourself as well. The ninth pattern is personally engage agility. And I can't do one of these things without having Yoda. So there's the obligatory Yoda on the right. But what I'm trying to say here is don't just tell your teams to be agile. Don't slip books under their desk. Don't just buy classes for them. Engage a leadership coach. Buy leadership training for your leadership team. Be coachable. Be open-minded to coaching. Be inquisitive. Become a student. There's a wonderful book called Personal Kanban by Jim Benson. And so personal Kanban is exactly that. It's applying Kanban personally. I use it for my writing. Use it in your house with your family. I know it's a little geeky, but personally apply it. Use it in your office. Use it for managing your day. But now start being inquisitive around, that WIP, that work in progress limit. Now I'm starting to understand what that really means. Oh, now I'm understanding how insidious multitasking is. Now I get it. I'm visually seeing it on my Kanban board. Point is, show your team that you're not just telling them what to do. You're embracing agility yourself and demonstrate an understanding. For example, I ask all of you to realize that Agile is not a speed play. Out of the box, it's not a speed play. It's a quality play that can be fast, but only if you invest in quality practices like continuous integration and automation and things like that. It's not a silver bullet for speed. So demonstrate to your team that you realize that, and then you start in your language, in your questions, in your inquiries, you start talking about sort of principles behind, oh, how do we get fast? Oh, we need to invest in CI. Are we doing an effective? Am I investing enough in that? Are we going fast enough in CI and building out our continuous integration or our continuous deployment environment? What can I do to help, etc.? So that's that personally engaged agility in your understanding. And the final one, there's a friend of mine, I don't think he's listening in here, but I've coached a team in Milwaukee for a number of years, and Matt is one of their internal coaches now, and he attended my first class with them years ago, and in that class I had mentioned fun as an attribute of mature Agile teams. And sometimes I forget that in my classes, and Matt always attends the classes I run for this client. And if God help me if I forget fun, because he reminds me all the time. So he is stuck. He remembers all of these practices, but he also is a pleasant reminder to me if I've forgotten that at the end of the day, it's also about fostering a fun environment, a joy, bringing the joy back to what we do, the joy of craft, the joy of profession, the joy of software. The joy of working in teams of bright, creative people building things that just knock the socks off of your customers. How cool is that? That's why we do what we do. So have a sense of humor, of self-deprecation. Be playful. If you can't be playful, go find someone else. Pay someone, a colleague, to be playful. Find partners in your teams to identify opportunities. Don't allow your teams to get too serious. Believe it or not, Agile teams can burn out. I see so many times that in organizations, teams sprint, 2-week sprints with never a day between them. They start and stop sprints, Monday, Friday, 2 years later, Monday, Friday, never a break. They're not working overtime, but they're intensely Agile. And they start burning out. They start regressing in their Agile practices. And leadership is, well, why is that? We're only working 40-hour weeks. It's not about the hours. It's about the intense level of engagement. If you've ever worked with a good Agile team, it's sort of scary how focused they are. And they're also focused on fun. So take breaks, do some team building, fund event ideas. And part of your hiring is hiring those can-do people. Part of that fun, it's not just fun for fun. Believe it or not, iDays, that Google time, was an incredible fun inspiration to those teams. Great teams, great developers, great testers. They have fun doing what they do. So there's no alignment with that. So that's 10 patterns. We have about 6 or 7 minutes left. I want to hand this over to Brian to see if we've got, just on this slide, you can get a free copy. I would encourage you all to get, I've written a book called Agile Reflections, which is talking about maturity patterns for more mature Agile teams. It's about 20 snippets, blog posts. It's free. You can get a free PDF by joining the mailing list there. You can also get a copy of these slides in PDF form by going to that second URL. So jot down those URLs if you want to get the materials. And what I want to do is hand it back to Brian to see if we have any questions in the last few minutes.
Great. Thanks for that, Bob. That was excellent. Yeah, so basically we're wrapping up here, and we have some time to take some questions. So we'll wait a minute or two and see if anyone wants to enter some questions in while we still have Bob. Go ahead and do that now. Okay, here's the first one. Would it be a good idea for leaders to share these 10 points with the teams and spend a retrospective having the team give feedback to the leadership?
My goodness, be still my heart. Whoever said that, yes, amen, yes, I love that idea. Yeah, again, be fair to yourself. So surveys are wonderful. Don't overreact. Don't get sad at the feedback. So fail forward. So be kind to yourself in your interpretation, particularly if it's a new team. You know, expect to earn their trust, etc. But I think that's a beautiful idea. I love it. I wish I'd have thought of it. So I would do something like that.
And Bob, would you include remote teams in that as well? Maybe partner teams?
Of course not, because they're not part of the team. We want to treat them as a second-class citizen. No, I'm kidding around. Yes, of course we would. Good. That's a good extension to that. So everyone here, when I say lead, when I'm leading teams, I lead remote teams, third-party teams, consulting teams, home teams, embedded teams. I try to be very, very consistent. I know there's legal differences, there's IP differences, there's contractual differences, etc. Yes, be sensitive to that, but all of this stuff applies to all teams. The more consistent you can be, for example, accountability. I remember years ago, before I joined Velocity Partners, I was a customer of Velocity Partners. And I remember we treated our definition of done, our constraints, our velocity expectations of Velocity Partners remote teams was the same, exactly the same. We expected them to do sprint demos just like our own teams. They struggled with them. We expected them to do retrospectives like our own teams. We expected them to fail forward like our own teams. We expected them to fail. We didn't expect them to be perfect, etc. So the more consistent you can be with leadership principles, again, within your business constraints, but the more consistent you can be, I think the better results you get.
Okay, so continuing on from that same thread, how can a leader encourage his peers to embrace these principles more when they are sometimes viewed as anti-traditional good management? For example, product owners, managers are challenged in this area.
I don't know exactly how to interpret the question. It's what I'm thinking is maybe someone is saying, you know, when senior leadership isn't changing and maybe the middle tier is changing, it goes back to the triangle. I think all three tiers have to be moving. I'd say go get some external help. Go get coaches like myself to come in and do leadership coaching or leadership training. It needs to be situational. It's not just classes. It is incredibly hard, I think, to transform from traditional leadership to agile leadership for folks. So you need role models. It's not just paying for it. It's be open-minded, being willing to say, I don't know, I need help, and then going and get the help. Organizations help their teams. They don't necessarily help the middle tier or the upper tier, and they need to start doing that. So I would say, you know, go get as much help as you possibly can, or generate it internally. I do think status quo is not the place to be. Another way of saying it is it's incredibly difficult to impossible to really transform at an agile level. So to have an agile transformation only at the team level. So what I'm saying is I have entrenched leadership, but the teams are going agile and we're going to be successful. I don't know if I've ever really seen that. If you want a good role model, and they have some wonderful YouTube videos that their leadership team talks about their challenges and how they had to transform themselves, it's Salesforce. If you do some Google searches on Salesforce.com and leadership discussions in their agile journey, they're incredibly open and transparent about their own journeys from a leadership perspective. And I would say share that with your leaders. You have to commit up and down the tiers in order to make it happen. And it's worth the effort. It's worth doing well.
All right, I think we're kind of out of time here. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And you know, you have our contact information, so don't hesitate to reach out to Bob or myself if you have questions or want some more information about anything we've discussed or our services. And we look forward to seeing everyone at our next webinar. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. You have a great day, and thank you for listening to my hand waving, etc. Stay agile out there. Bye-bye now.